Okay, so this is a comparison between the Roces Majestic 12, the Razor's Cult, and the Them Skates 909. More specifically, this is comparing the size 11-12 Roces Majestic 12, because that's the shell size within Roces is 11-12, and the Razor's Cult is the 10-11, and the Them Skates 909 that fits me is the medium shell. So there's a lot of sort of discrepancies with there, and it's very specific to my foot size, but this information will hopefully be helpful to some of you. So when I came back to skating earlier this summer after a 10-year break, my first pair of skates, the first pair of skates that I bought were the Roces M12s. They were the Bobby Spazov Pro Skate specifically, and I thought they were great. I really liked them, but I have a problem of overthinking things and started sort of diving into the nuances of boot sizing. Now there's like all these aftermarket liners that weren't really a thing when I used to skate. So I got a little nerdy, got into a little bit of a hole trying to figure out what would be like the ultimate perfect setup for me. I think it's also one of the things that happens when you come back to skating at an older age with a little bit of disposable income, and you can actually get the things that you want that maybe you couldn't have gotten when you were younger as easily. I know that was the case for me. So, long story short, I've bought too many skates. So, the Roces were great. They felt great. I used to skate them back in the day. They were one of my first pairs of aggressive skates. I actually started skating before there was actual aggressive skates. I had rollerblade lightnings, and it was probably right around the time that the TRS came out, which had the grind bracket, but that's another topic altogether. So I had a couple pairs of lightnings, and then the K2 fatties came out, and I got those, and then I skated those for a bit, and then went back to the Roces M12s and skated a whole bunch of other skates in between that, and then came back to Roces again. So I've skated Roces a few times, and they were just like, I saw the Bobby Spazov skates come out when I got back into skating. My size was available, so I jumped on them because I knew that they would work for me. So I started thinking about the shell sizing thing a little bit more in detail when I noticed that like the M12s were like an 11-12 shell, and I wear 12 shoes, but my feet are closer to, I'm pretty much a solid 11, but I wear Vans usually, and they run a little bit small. And I know in my ski boots, I skate a 10, and it is very, very tight fit. And I haven't been skiing too long, but I got into skiing a couple of years ago. That's actually what brought me back into skating. But I went to like a place where they professionally sized my boot and like did all this measurement, and they downsized me quite a bit. And getting that smaller boot and that really precise fit made everything feel so much better. It was so much more responsive. So I really wanted that for skating. So when I took the Roces M12, like took the liner out, put my foot in there, there was quite a bit of room between the end of the shell and my toe, which made me think that I could get a smaller shell. So that led me to the Razor's SL. I did a comparison between the SL and the M12. There's another video if you want to check that out. But the SLs were tiny bit shorter, very tiny. They're almost the same length, but I thought they were smaller because they're a 10-11 shell as opposed to 11-12 like the Roces. But they were too wide for me. So that brings me to the Razor's Cult. I decided to try the Razor's Cult because they have the 10-11 shell versus the Roces 11-12 shell. So I have both of them right here to show you. So this is a Valo shell, but it's the same thing as a M12 shell made by Roces. Valo was just like the sub brand before. So this is the Razor's Cult shell. So this is a 1011 and this is an 1112. And if you look, they're very, very close to the same size. The Cult is a teeny tiny bit shorter. And width-wise, the Cult is a tiny bit wider. Like when you go like this, they look like they're about the same, but the M12 doesn't. This is the M12. They're so close, I can't tell the difference. So anyway, the M12 boot tapers a little bit here. I don't know if you can see. You can kind of tell at the front. So there's a little bit of a taper that happens. And on the Razor's boot, it's perfectly flat. So these are both thin shells. They're about the same width, but there's a tiny bit more width in the Cult than the M12. At least in the 11-12 shell. If you bought like size 10 M12s and size 10 Razors, your M12 boot is going to be significantly smaller because that's a smaller shell than this. So when you're comparing these two skates, the 11-12 Roces and the 10-11 Razors are about the same, which is what I'm comparing here. So not only are they about the same size, I think there's maybe a few millimeters difference where the Roces M12 shell is a few millimeters longer. But in terms of weight, if that's something that you are interested in, they, like this, as just shells and cuff, no buckles, no sole plates, they are exactly the same. They both weigh 1 pound, 6 ounces. So just like this, they weigh 1.6 ounces. When you introduce the sole plates, and then the Roces one, they go up a little bit. So like I have a liner in here now, but without the liner, it's 2 pounds, 5 ounces. So the sole plate weighs a little bit less than a pound on this skate. And this one only weighed 2.3. However, this has the Cocoa strap, so I think maybe there's a little bit of weight savings there. So basically what I'm getting at is they're about exactly the same. So if you're looking for a lightweight skate, you can't go wrong with either of these. So this is them side by side. You can see they're very, very close in size. If you line up the bottoms, you can see that the shell of the M12 is a little bit longer, but the sole plate sort of sticks out a little bit more on the Razor's one. Also, in terms of sole space, they're pretty similar. I assume that the Razor was going to have more sole space, but it doesn't really have that much. I have a frame here to sort of hold up so that I can compare them better. So, oops. Okay. So both of these skates have thin soles. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Some people complain about that. It's still, astronomically bigger than like the soles that we skated in the 90s. There weren't even sole plates. Like when sole grinds were invented, you were literally just grinding on. You were working with that. I can't remember. Okay, there we go. So there wasn't much. In comparison, let's hold up the razors. Oops. Okay. So the razor sole plates are slightly bigger on the outside. I think the negative is about the same at the top, but it gets real small on the bottom. That said, I have been doing a lot of negative mistrials lately, and I did it with both of these skates fine. I didn't have any issues with that. I'm not a real fancy negative person, so I didn't do like any negative Macchios or whatever with these. But for the mistrial, they felt fine. So one important thing I noticed was they felt different to me when I was grinding, and I couldn't figure out what the difference really was, because when you look at the sole plate on the side, the grind space, the backside plate is, sort of the same. There's not that big of a difference. However, what I discovered was the Razor's skate mounts the frame much further back. So I don't know if you can tell. Let me line these up better. Okay. That's impossible. It's impossible to show. Anyway, let me use some math here. So if we look at the first bolt on the Roces, we've got like 3 fingers from the top. If we get the Colt over here, we've got like 4 fingers, easy. So what that means is your frame is mounted considerably further back in the Colt. And it sort of, one thing that I thought was weird that I never really noticed before was that when you put your skates on and you look down, like you don't see your front wheel with your foot size this big. So if you're someone with a big foot, this sort of makes it worse because it looks like the frame is even smaller if you're skating like a normal size frame. However, it puts the groove back further, like more in the center. And that really makes like royales and backslides and groove tricks feel great. They just feel locked on these. These are definitely some of the best feeling groove skate tricks I've ever had. And it's probably why I skated Razors a bunch in the past. I just didn't know why they felt better. That said, the M12s are great. Like, I kept going back to these. These feel good. I like everything about them. I really like how solid and quality they feel. Like, these just feel like the best skate that I've had in terms of like materials. Everything's just really nice. It just feels like a great boot. And so this is a Nils Pro model. So I do know that the regular M12s aren't as durable. Not durable, not as the material isn't as good. Like these Valo ones are definitely like a softer, kind of not as nice. It's like a squishier material. Or these, the Nils M12s just feel better. These are very solid, good skate. I like these skates a lot. So, some other information about them. Let's see. Talked about the weights. The cuffs are like the same height. They both have about the same cut. There's like a little bit more material on the back of the Cult, but I don't think it matters that much. The stock Razors buckles are hot garbage. The memory buckle on the Roces is really nice. I think they're both great skates. I guess let me talk about my foot size and how these work for me. So my feet measure, let's see, I have this written down somewhere. So my left foot is 290 millimeters long, and my left foot is 292. And they're maybe a little bit narrow. They're not super narrow, but M12s in this size fit me comfortable. I do know that Roces supposedly run narrow, but I think it's more of an issue on the smaller skates, especially given that these are like identical to the Razors. They're definitely skinnier than the SLs, though. The SLs were too thin for me. In all of the skates that I'm comparing, I've been using the same MyFit Crown liners, and these are in size 10-11. So they're smaller than my foot, but they have the neoprene toe box. So this like whole area is stretchy. This whole thing stretches, which is great. So you can, they're just perfect. So they're nice and thin up here, but they've got some nice support and padding at the top. I love these liners. I just wish they weren't so red. So between the two, if it was just between the two, I think I would be skating the Cults, even though I like I like the Roces better, but I just like them from I don't know. I just like the skates. However, I love the feeling of backslides and royales and unities and all that stuff in the Cults, and those are like my comfort tricks. Those are my favorite tricks to do. So there's that. So the other skate that we're talking about is the 909, and I love this skate. This is the skate that I'm skating. That's why it's all together. It's absolutely perfect for me. I actually got them, skated them for a little bit, and then went back to my M12s. And I think I had a bad session at a skate park, and I tried to blame it on the skates, and that was silly. But now I'm back on these, and this is by far the best setup I've ever skated. So this is the medium shell, and I first tried to skate thems on the 908 in the medium, and they were too small. But the 909 is a little bit bigger, and my foot fits in this skate like a glove. I have about like one finger extra space without a liner in here, and then with the liner, it's perfect. And the way the lacing system works, and there's like all these spaces, allows you to really get your foot locked in there tight. That combined with the crown liner really locks your heel in place. So even though I don't have a lot of room at the front, I never hit my toe on the end because my heel is like locked in place. So it's like that same sort of ski boot feel where it's just really, really locked in. In terms of weight, these shells are a little bit lighter. I don't remember the exact weight, but it was like an ounce difference. It was very little. But these are also dramatically smaller. So if we compare these, it's hard to compare because there's okay. So like you can see how much longer the M12s are, which is crazy that the them still fit me. The other thing I really like is the wheels. Like when you're looking down, I can see my wheel, see it in the back, which is cool. That's not something I had before. The grinding space, it feels very locked in, just like the Cult. The groove space feels really good. When I switched back and forth, I tried to skate the 909s and the M12s in the same day, and I skated the M12s first for a while, and then I got onto these and I fell like an idiot doing a Royale, which was frustrating, and that was one of the reasons why I kept skating the M12s, because I was just like, they're not good for me. But the problem is I got used to that like more angled Royale lock that you get with the M12. So after doing a whole bunch of those and jumping onto these, it was different, and it like messed me up. But once I do a couple on these and then I get used to them, it's more straight and locked and just feels really, really good. And these are perfect. Very happy with these. So these are my favorites out of the three. They're also the lightest and the smallest, and a tiny skate is something I really value as someone with a size 12 foot. I think it's incredible that I can skate these mediums, and that my foot fits in these pretty little skates. The shells just feel great. They're a nice material. They definitely feel better. The 908s felt a little crappy to me. I have the Roces memory buckle on here. The stock buckles are fine, but these are definitely a lot nicer. And skating the medium Wish frames. I've been trying a whole bunch of different frames and really into these. I'll probably do a separate video about the frames because this one's getting long. Okay. I think that's about everything.